Hey everyone, it's Aito Japan. Today, I want to talk about things that actually went well. Decisions I'm glad I made when we built our house. If I had to do it all over again, these are things I would absolutely repeat. Let's get into it. When we were picking land, we thought about the most obvious things. Where are the grocery stores, schools, clinics, things like that. But for us, the real question was, do we actually need to be that close? We wanted a view, and realistically, to get a view, you either need to go a bit further from the city or live in a high-rise apartment, which isn't really a house in the first place. For us, daily life mattered more than theory. Our lifestyle is mostly staying at home and then occasionally going on longer trips. So we picked land not for pure convenience, but for our lifestyle. There are a lot of plots around the 10 million yen range, even closer to downtown. But that wasn't our priority. And while Japan is often portrayed online as a super advanced society, the reality is that outside of major cities, trains really aren't that convenient anyway. Honestly, even Kyoto is like that. For me, to really unlock Japan, you need a car. You don't necessarily have to own one, but having access to a car lets you go places you just can't easily reach by train. So we chose land that's about 30 minutes from a train station, but only 3 minutes from a bus stop just in case. We also have a car which we use daily. And because of that, I get to enjoy this view every morning while I'm working in my office. Fortunately, there are schools nearby as well that may be useful in the future. For us, it was worth it. We definitely picked a good builder. There were a lot of reasons for that. Cost performance, friendliness, accessibility, but the biggest one was flexibility. We chose a builder that gave us the highest level of flexibility, and that single decision really set the tone for the entire build. We were going into this completely blind. We weren't professionals. I've done my fair share of high school projects, but other than that, I had little to no experience building things. And since we went fully custom this time, it meant that someone had to decide every single detail, which mostly meant my wife. Just kidding. Mostly. One of the things the builder promised us was unlimited planning sessions. We took months to plan everything. We changed our minds a lot, and every time we did, they adjusted the plans and worked through it with us. They were also very flexible about what we wanted to put inside the house. There were basically no limits, as long as something was physically possible. That kind of flexibility made the entire process much less stressful. Another thing that went really well was choosing a builder with strong standard options. Like any builder, most things in their model houses were technically upgrades. But unlike some builders, their standard options were already very good. A good example is our kitchen. It was supplied by one of their partnered vendors, and honestly, I have no complaints. We could upgrade a lot of things, like getting a bigger dishwasher, but we mostly stuck with the stock options. That alone saved us a lot of money. Wallpaper was another good decision. In Japan, people don't really paint walls that much, and wallpaper is much easier to repair or replace. The only thing we maybe should have upgraded was the ceiling in our Japanese-style room. Real wood might have been nice there, but honestly, no big deal. That's something we can always do later. Of course, while the standard options were good, it was also possible to save even more money by buying certain things ourselves and having the builder install them. And this is where the flexibility really paid off. For example, our cupboard. It wasn't a standard option, and if we had gone through the builder, it would have cost around 600,000 yen. Instead, we visited another vendor. We ordered a different one for around 300,000 yen. Another example is the wall panels in my office. I initially asked the builder to make them, but they told me it would cost double. They actually advised me to find something elsewhere, and they said they would install it for us. And they did. I just had to send it to them. Their advice saved us a lot of money, and they were willing to tell us that there was a cheaper or smarter option. That made a huge difference, not just financially, but mentally. Facing south. This is pretty standard advice in Japan. Having your house face south lets in the most sunlight. In winter, this reduced how often we needed heating during the day. It also makes the living room naturally bright, which improved our mood more than we expected. One thing to keep in mind is that this also ties into whether your builder includes things like noki, basically eaves. Our builder, like many modern builders in Japan, removes these for a cleaner look. It looks nice, but it's something you should be aware of when picking a builder. The downside is that without eaves, more light and more heat comes in, as well as the rain. There are ways to mitigate this, like curtains or simply closing them when needed. It's something you'll want to decide based on your own tolerance for light, heat, and rain. Outlets. If there's one thing I'd say everyone should do at all costs, is to add as many outlets as you can. It actually makes your house safer because you're not relying on extension cords or power strips everywhere. That means less clutter and a cleaner looking home. It's also relatively cheap. Adding a set was around 7,000 to 9,000 yen. If you try to add them after the house is finished, you should expect to pay roughly double. The only downside is that this decision gets locked in fairly early in the planning process, so you do have to decide quickly. But honestly, I don't think anyone has ever complained about having too many outlets. Japanese room. I'm not really sure why it has such a bad reputation, but personally, I love them. We didn't make it into a separate room. Instead, it's an extension of the living room, and when needed, we can divide it with a roll screen. It works as both a lounge and a guest space. It lets us lie down, stretch, or sit on the floor, something Western-style rooms don't really do well. Honestly, it's not that hard to clean either. We also chose real tatami instead of synthetic. Synthetic tatami keeps its color, while real tatami eventually turns yellow. We also had the option to choose tatami made in Japan or China, with the Japanese one being more expensive. Our builder told us that there wasn't much difference besides cost, so we just went with the Chinese one. If you're someone who really cares about where things come from, this is where having a flexible builder really matters. Sink in the toilet room. This is something I personally recommend. Most Japanese toilets do have a small sink built into the toilet itself. The problem is that you're not really supposed to use soap with it. I've heard it can clog or damage the system, so it's not ideal. For guests, they don't have to walk around the house looking for somewhere to wash their hands. So we installed small sinks in all of our toilet rooms. There were a few minor issues at first, like a broken door, but overall it works well and does exactly what we wanted. No wood deck. I really wanted a wooden deck. It was my akugare. But for budget reasons, we decided not to get one and instead finished the area with concrete. After living here for a while, I realized we actually don't go outside that much. For about half the year, it's either too hot or too cold. So we avoided paying for something we would realistically use only a few months a year. In the end, I'm kind of glad we didn't get a deck right away. Maybe that'll change in the future, and we'll install one later. If you watch my cost breakdown video, you'll know that if you don't go through your builder for the exterior, you usually have to pay upfront or take out a separate loan, which isn't ideal. On top of that, you still need furniture and appliances to actually live in the house. You might think this is pretty obvious, but it's actually something people often overlook, usually because they underestimate how much these things cost or don't account for prices going up over time. I built this house in my 6th year in Japan, and even in my 1st year here, there wasn't anything concrete I could do back then, but I made it a rule not to accumulate too many things. As expected, I moved several times for work, and by the time we finally moved into this house, the only things I really had left were my piano and my PC. My wife and I had saved enough to cover the exterior, furniture and appliances, which I'm really grateful for. Because of this, we avoided needing a separate loan, and we were able to move in and live comfortably right away. I do have some tips on furnishing a house on a tight budget, but I'll cover that in a separate video. That said, we pretty much wiped out our budget outside of investments in our emergency fund, so we're still slowly rebuilding our savings to decorate properly. For now, we're enjoying the accidental minimalism. If there's one piece of advice I want to leave you with, during planning, certain things need to be fixed in order to move forward. Even if you go fully custom and have unlimited meetings like we did, you'd still have to lock some things in earlier than expected. Room layouts are especially hard to change later, so I recommend spending the most time there. I'll talk more about this in my next video, about things builders don't really tell you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.